Hello there, thank you for watching this video. Um, Basically today I wanted to talk about meeting Joaquin, which was basically, obviously, one of the most beautiful moment of my life. I said lately that it was the best moment of my life. So some of you did see that I did videos explaining my meeting with Joaquin, but because it was just after the meeting or not so long after, I was still quite in a shock, emotional shock, because it was for me more than a dream coming true, really. I cannot explain to you what it meant to me, and still today, well, it was on July 31st, almost August 1st, 2021. It was not expected. Well, I was there for this, but in my mind I would go back home and it would not have happened. But let's go to where it began. I live in Montreal. Disappointment Boulevard movie is shooting since June. I knew from the beginning since February. And I was like, oh my god, I hope there will be a moment where I can meet him. But in my mind, it was a Hollywood star. In my mind, all the interviews, the videos I saw, it was kind of a distant, cold guy, not a mean guy, obviously, but a guy that doesn't want to get disturbed. And I was like, I don't want to go too much in his space, so I'm like, at the beginning of the movie shooting in June, I wasn't able to go because I was too busy. But then at the end of July, I was able to find where was the movie shooting. So I went in total for 3 days, not in a row. No, well, I went, and after a few hours, I went back home, and I did this for the 3 days. So the first day, there's security guys that are there, which are super nice, by the way. I was quite surprised how nice they were, because I'm always scared to bother people and look like a super groupie or something. So I just sit there, I watch, and I don't want to bother anybody, so I'm just minding my own business. I talk with them, I ask questions, how it is like to do the security with the movies and stuff like that. And some of them, they were pretty nice and actually talk more and explain a bit why the movie was touching me so much, because they seem to really like the movie. Also, we talk more about personal stuff, and so at one point I became emotional, and I'm like, do you think there's a chance I could, I don't want to bother him, and I just want to have 5 minutes to just express how this movie saved my life. His acting made me so. This movie literally brought me back to life, because it's the same story of my life. Now I'm explaining to you like this, but there I wasn't like that. I was really more emotional, not super crazy, but I was more emotional. So they were super touched, but they were like, I don't think so, and I'm like, yeah, I know that, and I wouldn't want to bother him anyways because he's working, so I know that when he's working he doesn't want to get bothered, so I prefer seeing him in the back far, which I did see him from far. And the third day I always also see from close Ari Aster, which is the the guy who does the movie, who did Hereditary, Midsummer, and stuff like that. So on the third day, I start becoming more emotional because, I still go through my traumas and the things related to the movie. So the emotions come more naturally when it comes to this movie. I see him from far, and I'm in my mind. I'm still sitting. I'm doing my business, and I don't want to bother anybody. That's my worst fear. I have a lot of anxiety, social phobia, so for me it's like a challenge to be there. And I sit alone, and I just watch the movie. And at one point I'm talking to a security guy, and I'm like, I really don't know. I really know that I can meet him, but do you think if I could write him a letter to explain it all? And he's like, you know what? That would be possible because would be bringing to him, and just this idea, I explode in tears. I'm like, fuck, man, this will help me so much. I would be so happy to know that would have this letter. I wrote a letter. I keep it with me. And I'm doing my stuff. We talk. I talk with the security guy. I'm emotional. I'm in my mind. Then I look up, and he's going outside with a woman who was his assistant, and he's looking near where I am, but I just turned because I'm like, oh fuck, and then he speaks with the girl. He goes, he continued to walk, but she comes to see me, and she said, I'm sorry, can I help you? Do you need anything? And my first thought, fuck, I bothered them. They want me to go because it's been 3 days she sees me there. So I bother them, and I'm already emotional, and I tell her, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go home. And I start crying, and I'm like, I'm really sorry to be like that right now. I know it's not possible to be walking. I'm getting emotional again right now. I was exactly like that. I say, I know it's not possible to meet him, but I just wanted to tell him just a few minutes how his movie saved my life. It's the same life story, the same trauma, same thing with my mom. And I just wanted to tell him, thank you so much for saving my life, and that would be it, And she's like, okay, well, I'll be back. I'm like, okay, and I'm looking at the security guys, and we are confused or stuff, but she goes to see him, and she comes back. But when she comes back, I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, why is she coming back? She was just talking to him. And she's like, come, get up. And to go where? She's like, get up, come on. And at this very moment, my legs, I thought I was falling. I looked at the security guy I was looking down on the floor, make sure I wasn't stepping on wires or anything. I'm like, Marjo, you have to stay still. It's not the time to faint. That's not the time. Now, I have to remind anybody that it's not coming from someone who is a big fan of Joaquin Phoenix. Oh my god, he's so sexy. Oh my god, favorite actor. I saw all his movie. I'm a fan of his acting, but I saw The Master. I saw a couple of other movies, but for me, Joker is a journey, a personal journey that saved me from suicide. It's a movie I saw more than 200 times. It's a movie that when I was alone, I started doing cosplay. And I was so suffering alone, and Joaquin was on screen every time. And I felt less alone when he was on screen because I felt like this character related to me in a sense. Um, and he portrays these emotions so well. Uh, for me, he's a symbol of all of this, and I can't explain it to you. It's just too intense. And then we go inside. I'm still confused. And she's like, okay, so we're going to take her temperature. Her name is Marjolaine. It's Marjolaine, right? Okay. So she's going to meet Joaquin, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm going to what? And at this very moment, I dissociated. Period. One of the security guys was there, and he was like, fuck yeah! You know, he was so happy. But me, I'm like, I was feeling paralyzed. I was not feeling my body anymore. And she says, okay, so you go outside, and we're gonna sit on this bench, and he's gonna come to you to see you. I'm like, okay. I sit, and he's coming right away. Hey, how are you? I'm like, I'm okay, you know. I had worse, and I knew that if I met him, I would become very emotional because of all this. That's what happened, but mostly I couldn't understand. I couldn't process the fact that he was in front of me, and to imagine meeting him and actually meeting him, it was two different things. To see his eyes, to hear his voice talking to me, was something quite weird, and I'm not sure how to explain and why it was like that. But I felt like I was hearing her, you know. You're gonna tell me he's a fictional character and that he's the actor. I know. So I still don't get it. But I start crying, and I'm saying, yeah, I just want to tell you that your movie actually saved my life. And I was trying not to cry, but it was pretty hard. And I was trying to say, okay, go fast, and talk at the same time. So I was confused and anxious. He was not supposed to approach me. He was standing. And I said, yeah, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just want to say thank you for doing Joker, because this movie literally saved my life. And he was looking at me very confused. And I said, it literally saved my life. And I started crying. I said, you don't want to know how many times I saw it, but at least 200 times. I have the same life as Arthur. And he's like, oh, and he sits next to me. He wasn't supposed to. Take off his mask, listen to me. I just couldn't stop crying. I was like, okay, I can't process the fact that I'm talking to him right now. I have no access to therapy as Arthur. What Penny does to him, she does that to me 4 or 5 times. I never danced on a police car. I never killed anybody. I wasn't adopted. But I'm a clown since I'm a kid. I was bullied as a mascot and I was beating up. Um, and when I was saying that, he was like, "Oh my god, poor baby," and it like, um, um, voyons, frotter mon dos. Comment tu dis ça en anglais? He was rubbing my back, like, "Poor baby," you know. He was like very like touched by the fact that I had like the same life, and he was looking not confused, but he looked like someone like he wished he could do something but he couldn't, you know. um, and I'm like, you know, I have no access to therapy, but at one point I started making the scenes and doing Arthur Joker, and he was like, "Okay, I'm sorry, you're doing what?" And I'm like, okay, he doesn't understand, you know. Me, I'm so used to my process. I said, okay, I'm redoing the scenes which are the same events of my life. I dress up as Arthur and I live the emotions that are the same to me. I'm doing the same as Joker, and the scenes that he walks slow motion in the subway, it's the symbol of what I wanted to become, you know. And the movie became a therapy, and he couldn't handle that. It was too much for him. I don't know why, but he became to be very, very touched and emotional. When I said that in the movie, for me, it's still a tragedy, but in the character, in my heart, but mostly in my personal life, I'm able to give him what he never received. He was freaking out, and he said, while crying, many people came to me to say, "Thank you for Joker. It helps my mental health. Thank you. I have depression. It helps me. Thank you. The movie, because of the movie, there's more awareness for mental illness." This is the first time I'm hearing something like that. I am overly shocked, and he's like, I'm so amazed by your strength and by the story. Thank you. And he was like, you wanted to get up, and he gave me the biggest hug ever, like for at least 5 minutes, rubbing the back of my head, kissing my forehead, and he's like, everything is gonna be okay. I promise. It's really gonna be okay. After he says, "Are you hungry? Did you eat?" You know, because also I told him I'm super poor, blah blah blah. I'm like, I barely had food, you know. So he said, "Okay, I have to go back shooting," but he goes to see his assistant. He's like, "Do we have to go? The time to go to the restaurant? We don't have like time to go to the restaurant. Oh no, okay. Do we have food here? Sandwich? Okay. Okay, but I have to go back shooting. But let's hang out later, maybe." And I'm like, I don't want to bother him, so I go back to sit where I was sitting alone, and I'm just not speaking, not telling anything. I'm just looking at the security guy. The security guy, his jaw is dropping to the floor. He can't imagine what just happened. He's like, "Oh my god," you know. But I can't talk to him because I'm not processing what happened, because I don't have the time to talk, because he's coming back with a handmade avocado sandwich with water and Coke, and he came back 2-3 times like that, and basically that's the surprise, mostly, how much of a superhuman being he is. And that's not the Joaquin that you see in interviews. That's not the Hollywood guy That's not the guy who doesn't have the time to talk in interviews. That's totally different thing. And I cannot express with words. To this day, I'm still less emotional, but to this day, I can't process it. And that's the most wonderful experience I ever had. I couldn't imagine it would happen, and to express this to him was a relief that was so huge, and it materialized something, and it gave me strength. It's not him giving me strength, but the experience brought me something that gave me strength. I already had strength, but now I'm even more motivated to do the psychodrama and pay it forward to help others, and that's it. And I just hope that all you guys can meet him and have this experience, because I just want everybody to go through that. Everybody deserves this. Really. So, bye. Thank you.